Welcome, everybody. This is Pixeled Perspective. I'm Adrian Townsend.
And I'm JJ.
Today we're talking video game collecting.
Episode 2. Look at us with our long-running spiel here. 2 weeks? Is that how long we've been going so far? I'm excited.
It's actually episode 1. Episode 2.
True. It is episode 1 because we did episode 0 2 weeks ago.
You know what's funny about
will be next month.
Episode 0 was really supposed to be an introductory episode, and it ended up going like an hour and a half long.
That's what happens when we talk about video games. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Every time.
I'm kind of worried about how long this show is going to go. I have a lot to say about collecting. My thing.
So why don't we keep it simple to start? What have you just short and sweet? What have you been playing recently?
So I've been playing a lot of things. So Black Friday just happened, and I've been buying a lot of Switch games, and I haven't really committed to any one of the Switch games that I bought, but I have been dabbling in them to decide which one I'm going to commit to.
Right.
But I can give you kind of a rundown of what I bought, which is quite a bit of here. I got Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country. I picked up the Switch version of Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, or The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. I don't know. The title is kind of weird. I don't know how to read that. I also got Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Complete Edition and Bayonetta 2. I also got Dark Souls on Switch. I got Dragon Quest 11 on the Switch. That was actually my birthday present.
There you go.
What else I get?
Were those all on sale?
Well, kind of. We can get into that with the collection.
Fair enough.
I am like a huge bargain shopper, and I know how to work the systems most of the time. It's I kind of get I have fun with doing that.
There you go.
But I also got Yooka-Laylee, the sequel to the Yooka-Laylee, or not? Yeah, is it
Banjo-Kazooie? Right? Is it a sequel to Banjo-Kazooie?
No, Yooka-Laylee, the from the creators of Banjo-Kazooie. They made the Yooka-Laylee game last year.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they just released
some tie-in.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't last year. It was a Kickstarter thing that came out a year or two ago.
Yeah.
They released a sequel a month or two ago, and it's actually a 2D side-scrolling game instead of a 3D platformer.
Interesting.
It's good. It's really good. I started playing a little bit of it just to try to see what was it all about. That one was on sale. I got that at GameStop for $10, which is a huge deal for that game. It's really good so far.
Cool.
A lot of people compare it to Donkey Kong Country, and there are a lot of similarities graphically and gameplay wise.
Is it easier, I hope?
I could see it being complicated. The first level oh yeah,
the new
definitely
one,
was.
Tropical Freeze.
That was honestly shockingly hard. Like newer Nintendo games aren't that difficult, but that one was definitely hard. They also, I also picked up Control on PlayStation 4 and Shenmue 3. And I think there was one other one, but I don't remember. I went a little overboard, needless to say, but that is the problem of
You just been playing a little bit of all of them?
Yeah, I've dabbled in all of them. I think the only one I've really committed to is Pokemon and Dragon Quest 11.
Okay. All right. Cool.
What about you?
My list is way shorter. I've been playing Persona 3, and that's about it. I still play Final Fantasy 14 and World of Warcraft Classic is what I've been playing, just because I have a group of friends that I play with. But Persona 3 has been taking up most of my time. It is the final game in my list of 20 games that I set a goal for myself to beat in 2019.
Awesome.
Once I get done, I will be so happy. And then I have the new list drawn up for 2020. And I'm gonna actually make a video on it, so I will have that coming out soon.
Can you give us like a sneak peek? Can you name like one?
Dark Souls.
Ah, yeah, nice.
Just for you, it's on there. It's
Yeah.
on there.
All
I'll give you
right.
another one because I know we talked about that last time. But another one is Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. I've got on
Ooh,
there as well.
that is supposedly the best game in the series,
That's what I
from
hear.
what I've heard.
So I'm very
I have
excited.
not played that one either. So,
I have played about maybe like 10 hours of it, and I really enjoyed it. So
mhm.
I'm looking forward to going back, and I'll start over, but I'm looking back forward to finishing it.
So interesting story. Um, I know we haven't started our topic yet, but it's related to Paper Mario. I was watching a video review where a guy was basically he reevaluated. I think it was Arlo actually on YouTube.
Mhm.
He reviewed Paper Mario when it came out, and he went back and reviewed it again, or went back and played it again recently, and tried to see if his opinion had changed on the game. Um, and he pointed out something that I didn't know, and this is the Paper Mario for the Wii U
Right.
Color Smash. He said that you can basically avoid all battles because you don't get really anything worthwhile from battling. So you could either
Interesting.
run away from the enemies or go into battle and then run away after you go into battle. And then if you run away, the enemy character or the little sprite will disappear from the map. So you could basically get through the entire game without fighting anything.
So there's no experience in leveling up?
No, there's not.
Mm.
Um, it's something that I hadn't thought about. I played through several levels in that game, and I enjoyed the colors and everything. It's a
Sure.
really nice, beautiful game, and the way it's created and everything with the paper aesthetic, it works really well. But
Right.
the battle system sucks. It's very tedious and time consuming because you have to do everything on your touchpad, and then you got to
Sure.
flick up the cards whenever you want to battle, and it's more of a gimmick than a realistic tool for or a fun mechanic for a game. Um,
Interesting.
but now knowing that I can basically avoid all the battles,
Yeah.
it has me curious to go back and try to get through it, because it was, I mean, the only reason I stopped playing it was because of that tedium, you know. So I don't know.
Hmm.
And it's kind of interesting, and I hope that the older games in the series don't have that same kind of fault.
Sure. Interesting. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, that was a little tangent there that I
No,
that I found
that's hey
interesting.
man, that's what we're here to
Yeah,
talk. So that's what we do. Should we get into collecting?
yeah,
So
definitely.
this is a massive topic for us, you especially, because you are way more versed in this than I am. I am more, and I think we'll probably get into that because I think that's how I'd like to start. Is why don't we approach it from what got you into collecting in the first place,
Yeah.
video games specifically. So why don't you go ahead and start us off?
So I have always been kind of a collector since I was a kid. When I was younger, I had my first job at 14, and I was working for my neighbor. I lived in a country, and I was basically like a ranch hand, and I would help with mowing or feeding cattle or building fence or cutting down trees or burning brush or anything you can think of related to livestock. I would
I
help.
was making sandwiches at 14.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we both worked at 14. That's really pretty rare, I'd
Yep.
say. I knew back then very few of my friends, if any, had jobs, and
Yeah.
so
Same.
it was kind of cool that I did, and I had an income, but nothing really to buy. So instead of saving it like a smart kid should, I blew it on collecting action figures. And so I would, at that time they re-released the Star Wars trilogy, and um my mom got me one of the figures because we were totally into the movies. I had, believe it or not, had never seen the movies before they re-released them. So we went and watched the first movie, and we were just in love with it. So my mom surprised us with the figures. I think she got me like a Luke Skywalker or something like that, or Han
Heck
Solo. I
yeah.
don't remember. And after that, I was kind of hooked. I would go to department store and see all the figures there on the shelf. And I was too old to play with them, and I really had no interest to play with them. But I
Right.
loved setting up like scenes on my shelf, in my room, creating just something cool to look at.
Sure.
I'm a very visual person, so anytime I can set up something that if I just come into my room and look at the walls and look at my collection and stuff, it's strangely satisfying to me, and it brings me pleasure, brings me
I'm the
joy,
same
I
way.
guess.
Yep.
A lot of
we were
are-
just talking about before we did this how much we think the Switch games look so good on the shelf.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a concept that a lot of people don't get. Like talking to Amy, my wife, she doesn't get the same type of feeling from that I do. Some people like to go outside and enjoy weather, and I love doing that too. That's just another thing that I like to do. But indoors, I like to have a visual setting that stimulates me,
Right.
So anyway, I started collecting Star Wars figures, and I went way overboard, man. I made pretty decent money back then for a kid, and I worked my ass off though. It was totally worth it.
Sounds like it, yeah.
But I would go out and buy everything that I could, and I started realizing that this stuff is expensive, so I started learning how to bargain shop, and I started looking for sales and figuring out how I could maximize the number of figures that I got for the cost. So that became a kind of an addiction in and of itself. I don't think I ever became like hoarding level collector, because I think there's a dangerous level to get to.
Sure.
But anyway, I started collecting more than just Star Wars figures. I started getting like figures based on video games. Like I got Metal Gear Solid figures when they came out, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, Final Fantasy,
Ninja
Turtles,
Turtles.
you name it. Ninja Turtles. Actually, those are recent. I didn't get those when I was younger. So I did build up, and I started buying, like, McFarlane Toys was my favorite toy collection back then, or toy maker, I guess. And so I bought a lot of his stuff, or their stuff, and they were usually based on movies and things. So I would buy. They had a Movie Maniacs line, and I would buy, like, I bought Evil Dead, Psycho, The Crow, Escape from New York, things like that. It was just like they would release like all these classic movies in figure form, and I would just go buy them and put them up on my wall and enjoy it. So after that, I moved away, went to college, and I couldn't take my collection with me. I took a few little things, but most of the rest of it got put in boxes and stored up in an attic or something at my parents' house. And I started missing it. I really wanted to get back into it again. And at that time, I was really heavily into. I was always into video games at that time too. And the only reason I didn't buy a lot of video games is because of the cost. Like, yeah, I was making good money, but I could get a lot more figures for my money than one game.
Sure.
But I would still buy the games that I wanted. But later on, I started getting into the video games, and I started buying video games. But I don't think I ever really thought about collecting them. I did like to hold on to the games that I had just in case I ever wanted to go back and play them. But there came a period in time when, when you're in college and you're not making any money and you want to play the latest and greatest game, you would start trading in games to be able to afford the new game. So there's a lot of games that I got rid of. And then later on, I started wanting to replay those games and then also play the games that maybe I missed out on in that period of time as well.
Right.
So I would go and start looking for clearance bins and start buying up the games that I could find. And I started collecting, kind of like not knowing that I was collecting, I guess. But anyway, I mean, I don't think I legitimately got into collecting until about, maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Um, so what had happened is I'd already had like a small little collection, and I had a guy that I worked with, and he was into gaming too, but he was into retro gaming.
Mhm.
And so he would talk to me about all these old games and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I miss playing those old games. I wish there was still a way that I could get a hold of them, besides just the emulator. I kind of miss it. And he kind of sparked that interest in me again. So I started going to eBay and picking up games there. And then I started finding like retro game shops. I don't think I knew of any actual retro video game shops, but there was like, we have a vintage stock, and I think there was only one in my area, and I would go there. We had a Hastings that I would go to and
Yeah.
buy games at, and and Game Exchange is another big one around here. I started buying old RPGs that I either had and sold or missed out on completely, and it just became, I don't know, like, I don't know at what point it became something that I wanted to really actively seek out. It was just kind
Completely
I just kind
understand.
of
Yeah.
fell into it. Yeah. And my biggest thing, my biggest thing when I got into it, I've always wanted to do like either a video series or a podcast or something talking about my games, or old games that mean something to me. And I always felt like it was important to actually have the game versus just playing it on an emulator and talking about it.
Sure.
And I think that also had something to do with sparking my interest in collecting. But I think the thing that really set it off for me was looking through Craigslist, and then finding a deal on Craigslist, and learning that there are deals out there that can be found, and I can get a large chunk of rare and expensive RPGs for next to nothing. And that thrill, that excitement of finding um, finding treasures,
Right.
is what really, really got me into it. I think it went from wanting to play and experience the old games to the thrill of the hunt for me.
Sure.
So there's a lot more to it, but I feel like I've gone on long enough. I'd like to hear how you got started with it.
I'll be honest, like a lot of it, I mean, it's not the same, but the sentiment, as far as like, I couldn't pinpoint exactly when I was like, I want to be a collector. It just kind of happened gradually. Growing up, I did not have a lot of games. I had like 15 to 20 NES games, which looking back now is nothing. But to me back then, it felt like a lot. But what really stuck out to me was how everybody else that I knew seemed to get new games all the time. And for me, if I wanted a new game, I either had to wait for Christmas or my birthday, or I had to wait till like my cousins got it or something like that. So it was always just kind of like playing the same games over and over again, which is where my nostalgia comes from as far as the games that I talk about the most and the games that I really love, because for a while it was all I had. I remember one time I was with, I was in, probably 6th grade. I was hanging out with my buddy Josh, and we were just at his house, and he goes, "Hey mom, can we go up to FuncoLand and get a game?" And she goes, "Yeah, let's go." And I was like, what? How did that happen? Like, how come I can't do that? Like, what the hell? And I think I've told you this, but I found out years later, my mom was like, "Well, you never really asked, like, other than Christmas and your birthday." And I was like, damn it, could have had so much more.
Yeah.
Like, it was ridiculous. So like, it was so frustrating. But I once I started reading like Nintendo Power and Game Pro and stuff, and seeing all the things that I missed out on. God, once I started playing Final Fantasy and meeting other people who were into RPGs and stuff, and they started telling me titles, and they were things that I would like only dream about. Like, I remember this is the garbage game, but God, I remember hearing about it. Secret of the Stars. I was like, it's an RPG. I really want to try it. but I've never seen it before, and I have no idea what to look for. Mom, if you see Secret of the Stars, pick that up for me because I want it. Had no idea, didn't know anything about it. I finally got it years later, and it's not good. It's a Tecmo RPG, and
I've never heard of it.
It's really bad. It's really bad. But it's
Is
like
it NES?
Super Nintendo, Super NES.
Okay.
I did eventually get it, years later. But then also, so once I started working at 14, I was working in a sandwich shop. I had a manager who was also a gamer, so we would talk about Final Fantasy. He loved the role playing games and stuff too. He sold me Castlevania Symphony of the Night and the strategy guide for $15 at the time, which is a great investment on that. So I'm happy with that one, because he had finished it and he was like, I'm not going to do anything with it, if you want it. But I would buy games cheaper from him and add them to my quote collection at the time. I didn't even look at it as a collection at the time. It was more just, these are the games I have. And I'm happy to have these because I can play them as much as I want, and
exactly,
yada yada.
That's how I felt as well.
And it wasn't until I started kind of after years of gradually getting more and more looking and being like, holy crap, I haven't played like 2/3 of these, but I own them. That's when I started to realize, like, I'm kind of amassing quite the collection here. Then I started watching Happy Console Gamer on YouTube, and I would see, the background that he has, which is his collection behind him. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. I would love to have like a display like that. That'd be so awesome. Which eventually led me to the Game Chasers, who, obviously is, go out and go to flea markets and game stores and door to door, and talk to people and buy their old stuff. And that tied in with me being a nostalgia nut, kind of just was like, I really like this world. I really like the idea of going out there looking for games and then finding them. However, at the time, all I really had was GameStop and vintage stock, and that was it. And that wasn't like, you can't really go to those places and necessarily look for deals, and especially not haggle. I actually didn't even do any of that until very recently, in the past like 3 or 4 years. Mo Game Con was the first official video game convention that I had been to. The first time that I bought video games at a convention was Kansas City Comic Con, or Planet Comic Con is what it's called. And that was in like 2015, I think. And I got like 6 NES games. And the guy had them marked, and they were like ranged in price from like $1 to like $10. And he just goes, $2 a game for that. If you want, you're going to get them all. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. I thought it was a great deal. And I was like, awesome, sweet. Cause Dragon Quest 1 was in there, and I was happy to have that. And cause old school RPG and whatnot. That kind of like, I was like, I need to start going to these things more often and looking for these vendors that have these older things who are willing to cut me some deals on, what they're going to do. And I it wasn't, again, like I said, until a couple of years later when I finally did go to Mo Game Con and was able to get some stuff there. And then obviously met up with you at Retropalooza last year and then this year, and kind of expanded my horizons there as well. I do not have a lot of experience with it, but I do love the idea of going out into the wild, now that I have a car, not that I didn't have a car, but I didn't have one at 14. I sure as shit didn't have one at 14. But when I didn't really have the opportunity to go out and drive, especially without the internet at the time. I couldn't Google game stores near me, or like thrift shop near me or something like that. I literally had to like just go off of word of mouth or drive around, and I wasn't going to do that. And I didn't frankly know that many people who were into games at all, much less collecting. So it was just GameStop and vintage stock. But once I had these additional resources and met some additional people, I now like, I did that video a while ago where pickups where I went to Michigan and I punched in game stores near me. Freaking went to Michigan for a wedding and came home with a Dreamcast or a Dreamcast and like a few other games. And I was just blown away that I was able to get this amazing deal out there randomly because I went and I hunted and it felt really cool. And then I obviously at Retropalooza, you saw how excited I was when I walked up to you with my bag that had Final Fantasy 3 in it and like, all the, like, I was like, I finally got the box. like it's great. It's a rush, you know. And I know that
It
sounds
is.
super cheesy for anybody who's not into the hobby or anything like that. Just think of something you're super passionate about, and then imagine everything going right with that passion, you know, for
Right.
just a few moments. And that's what it's like to find that score. And it's awesome. It really is.
I I equate it to something like for me like fishing. I was a big fisherman when I was younger, and I still enjoy doing it when I can. But uh, you're patient. You're out there, and you've got your line in the water, and you're patiently waiting for that hit. But once you get that fish, you reel them in. That excitement that you get, that thrill, is
Yeah.
really it's addictive. And it
You're a lot
makes
more
that
patient and
patience.
more um what's the word, you dig a lot more than I do, and that's probably because of
I
my
do.
inexperience. Like I would never have gotten those Mega Man games from 2 years ago had you not gotten down on your knees and like dug through, like swam through these boxes. It was
Yeah.
crazy. But then you came up and you're like, look what I got, and I was like, oh, all right, cool, thanks. So I never would have seen
Dude,
that stuff.
I have an eagle eye. It's an acquired eagle eye, but I have an eagle eye. Um, for me, my real thrill came from going to garage sales, from Craigslist, from flea markets, from basically like those are the places that you're going to go and find a deal. I typically avoided game shops um, unless there was something that I needed that I knew I wasn't going to be able to find at a garage sale or something.
Sure.
So for me, that thrill comes from not knowing what you're going to get, and most likely you won't get anything, but there's a small little chance that you might, and going out and just wasting a lot of time. I mean, but I tell you what, though, like every single big find that I've had at a garage sale or thrift store or flea market, I remember those and I
Yeah.
treasure those. Like those are up on my collection. I've got some over here in my curio cabinet. Like those are the games that I truly treasure the most. Because those are the ones that were the biggest thrill to find. You know, finding them at ordering games on eBay and stuff like that is kind of a last resort for me. If I've been looking, I've been looking for. You remember Jade Cocoon 2? I was looking for that at
Yes.
Retropalooza. I spent the past 2 years looking for that game in the wild and have not been able to find it. At least not for the price that I want. And I have seen it at game shops and stuff, but it's either disc only or case and disc, no manual. And as a collector, I like to have
Sure.
the full complete set, at least for disc-based games. For cartridge games, I don't care. But I finally just, you know what? I said, screw it. I'm done looking. Yeah, I've wasted enough time trying to find this game. I've looked for the past 2 years, and it shouldn't be that hard to find. You know, it's not a rare game, nor is it an expensive game.
Right.
Finally, today somebody posted on eBay for $20, which is a good price for it, and so I went ahead and bought it. And I don't know that game may stay with me just because of how long it took me to acquire it. But you know, let me give you some examples, and I probably shared these before, of games that mean a lot to me that I found out in the wild, and also what I've done. Actually, before I tell you those games, how I knew to shop at garage sales and flea markets and stuff. Where I grew up, or when I grew up, my because we lived in the country, my mom had animals, and she would raise guineas and sell them at the flea market, or ducks and rabbits. She had like small little critters that she would sell at flea markets. So when we would go to the flea market, I would help her man the booth or whatever. But then I would go wander around, and you know, I had $5 in my wallet or something, and I would always just buy games. I would buy NES games, and back then, at that point in time, the NES was kind of out. The Super Nintendo was all the rage,
Yeah.
and um, so I was able to find NES games for dirt cheap, and a lot of my collection of NES games came from that. So as I got older and decided that I wanted to collect again, um, that was my obvious first choice to go to, just because that's how I used to do it. It's like that's how you get the best deals. Um, the problem is that when I started collecting, it was probably not the best time to start collecting, at least with finding games in the wild like that. So I wasn't able to find a whole lot, but I did go out to, I would scour Craigslist, and I would spend every Saturday morning going to garage sales. And I would stop by the thrift store on my way home every day after work. And I did acquire some really, really cool stuff that way. I also made it known that I was a collector, and I've acquired some things through people because of that as well.
Yeah.
But some of the bigger things that I found was Snatcher. I picked up Snatcher, complete in box, mint condition copy at a thrift store. And this is actually a buddy of mine found this at the thrift store for me. $3, paid $3 for that game.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
a $600 game.
Yeah.
So even then, when he found it, it was like a $400 or $500 game. And it was a game that I really, really wanted because I'm a big Kojima fan. I have been for a while, and that was a game that I'd never experienced. I never had a Sega CD, so that was one that I really, really wanted. It was on my wish list, but I never thought I would actually buy it, for the several $100s it costs. So when he found it, dude, I was ecstatic. I was so happy for a very long time about that.
I'm sure.
It's one of those games that I'm never going to get rid of. I would like to put it in a shadow box and just hang it up somewhere. I'm never going to replay it, but it's a treasure to me,
Those are the best ones that have a story attached to them. Especially, I mean, you and I are the
Exactly.
same in that regard. It's going to be the same with my. How long was I looking for Mario Land 2? 6 golden coins.
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
like the whole. Ever since I met you, that was the game I was looking for, and we hunted for it together. Couldn't find it, and then we finally got it this year, and I was so excited about it. And that's anytime I look at that cartridge, that's what I'm going to think of.
Exactly. There's a story to be told with those games, and that's what makes it even better. There have been other situations like I've got the vast majority of my RPG collection on Super Nintendo and NES came from a Craigslist find. So I really lucked out on this one, and the guy posted it with some very grainy. It was just a picture of his table and all you could see was gray, like gray cartridges. Like I knew they were there, and so you couldn't tell what any game was, and all the description said was, I think it said like 100 games, mostly RPGs, for Super Nintendo. I don't think it said anything about NES. I was like, oh yes, I need those RPGs. Like whenever you start collecting, you kind of set a goal for yourself. My goal when I first started collecting was RPGs and horror games. So when I saw the RPG, is it?
Yep.
So when I saw that, I got excited and I called the guy immediately. And it was an old man, and I could barely understand what he was saying. And I was like, look, I can't see anything in your photos. He lived about an hour away from me, and I was at work at the time. So I was like, can you name off a few of those games for me, just so I don't have to go out there and for no reason.
For nothing, yeah.
And so he started naming off games, and every single game he named off was a game that I wanted, and was it was just like Breath of Fire, Final Fantasies, Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana. Like you name it, he had it. And I was like, okay, I want him. Can I come get him like after work today? He's like, well, I already got a guy coming after work, and if you want it, you probably should come now. It's first come. I told my boss, I said, I have to go like right now. I have to go get these games from this guy. It's a huge, big deal. And she's like, yeah, sure. Go ahead. She was awesome. She was a great boss. Yeah, by all means, take your time. So I called Amy. Amy came and picked me up with the kids, and we drove the hour to get there. He lived out in the middle of nowhere, dude. It was a little bit creepy. I must say.
It's amazing where you find this stuff.
Yeah, it is. But he lived in a trailer house in a trailer park out in the middle of the country, and but it didn't look bad or anything like that. It was just not something that I think it would scare some people away because
Right.
it's so remote. Um, so I get up there and knock on the door, and this old man comes and says, I told him who I was, and he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." So he takes me back to his back room and shows me the games, and oh my gosh, dude! Like every game I looked at was one that I needed and wanted for my collection. And then I noticed all the NES games, mostly all RPGs, and then he threw in. He didn't mention this, but he had all the manuals for all these games. He had strategy guides for these
Oh my
games.
God.
It was an insane find, and I paid $450 for the lot. This at that time, this lot was probably worth $2,000 to $3,000. So I got a hell of a deal,
Yeah.
and I was super excited. In fact, I came home and made a video about it, and I didn't look at any of the games other than the ones he showed me immediately until I got
Yeah.
home, and I still have the footage from that video. I need to edit that and put it out there because
That'd be cool to see. Yeah.
it was cool. So anyway, that's one of my big finds. I've had many, 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 many more, and every single one is just it's amazing, and I love it. I mean, I've had finds at thrift stores, garage sales. Garage sales are very, very hard though. Like I rarely find any good deals at a garage sale. It's hard to find games. You have to ask for games at garage sales
Yeah.
because most of the time people don't put them out. What else? Flea markets are dead. You will find games at flea markets, but you'll also there'll be games that you don't want, and
Yeah. And the condition is usually like
faded,
sun bleached, or like cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rough in a lot of, and it's heartbreaking to see in a lot of cases too.
Well, and the other thing is most flea markets will have a guy that already goes out in the morning and buys up all those games before anybody else. And he has a store or a shop in the flea market as well. And I've seen this at every flea market I've gone to. And so your only option is to go buy games from this guy who already went through and cleaned up the place. Yeah. And he marks them for eBay prices. So it's really kills any kind of deal that.
And if he doesn't have his mark, he pulls out his phone and looks to see.
Exactly.
You got to be like, hey,
oh, man, I hate
at
that.
least make sure you're looking at the sold column there, guy. Come on.
Yeah. But yeah, and then also the Craigslist finds. The problem with Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace is that you have to beat other people to it, and that's really a struggle. I lucked out with that one. I lucked out with another one too. There was another lot of games that I found on Craigslist, and I went to go pick it up, and the main game that I wanted was Breath of Fire 2. And so I get there to go pick up all the games, and I start looking through them. I was like, Breath of Fire 2 isn't in here, and that was the main game on your listing that I came here to get, with this lot. He goes, yeah. And he tries to pretend like he didn't take it out. Like, apparently somebody called him and told him that was the more valuable game. He was asking his asking price was just as much as that game was worth alone. So I think he realized after the fact. And I was like, dude, I drove all the way out here to get that lot and I want that game. He's like, it's kind of a shitty thing to take it away once I get here. He's like, yeah, I understand. Yeah. He felt bad, so he gave it to me. But I don't know. I thought I was in the right.
No, it sounds like you
because
were.
I went. Because I went out there. But
there's a lot of it's not even just that. Like even just asking people. I did a post on my Facebook a while ago where I was like, hey, I collect video games. If you have any old stuff, let me know what you have. Be happy to take a look at it, price it out for you. I'll even tell you what it's listed for, and I'll make you an offer and whatnot. I did all the work anytime somebody contacted me, and I had one of my old bosses contact me who had a friend of hers who had just closed a game store. And I got probably about like maybe $1,500 to $2,000 worth of games for about $300. That's how I got Gunnack on NES. That was in there, which
Wow.
I thought was great. At work, the guy that I work with, he was like he was cleaning out his basement. He was like, "Hey, I know you collect games. I found a bunch of my old Nintendo stuff. I don't really want it. My wife wants me to get rid of it." I made him an offer. He didn't care. He just wanted to get rid of it. His wife just wanted to get rid of it. So we worked something out to where basically like I was gonna get a bonus. He was gonna get a bonus that he was gonna split with me, and we basically like it was gonna be $85 that I would get, and they would have taken taxes out. So $85 is what I paid for. Like I think there were 20 games in there, two of which one was Kid Clown on NES, and the other one was the Jetsons. So and both of those
Nice.
alone, are more than that. So it's like you never really know, and nobody out there, like I mean not nobody, but most people out there have no idea what they actually have. And so I try to be as honest and upfront as possible when I am meeting those kind of people, because it'd be so easy to just be like, "Oh, you got crap. You know what? I'll just take them off your hands." And I legitimately offered him like I think like $300 for the whole thing, and he was like, "No, I just want to get rid of them. Just we'll call it good. That way I don't have to freaking go through the paperwork of giving you a bonus."
That's awesome.
I was like, "Oh."
And I think your honesty also contributes to that. Like had you not been honest with him, I don't think he would have. If somebody else had told him, let's say, the value of those games, I don't think he would have been so.
It
nice
wouldn't
about
sit right. I would feel terrible about it. Let me ask you this: how I know for me, I've noticed now that my collection is getting bigger, and I have a lot of what I want. Like there's still plenty out there that I don't have and would love to get, but a lot of it is going to be high dollar at this point. A lot of it's going to be a lot more rare, which makes it sweet when I do find it. But at the same time, like those lots don't really come into play as much for me. Do you find that is the case for you? And also, do you feel like when you even do have that, is the sense of urgency kind of gone in those cases? Like let's say you were to run into that same box today. You have all those games already. Are you really going to be leaving work early to run out there and do that to go get them?
No. No. Yes. So that's a good question. And I think that kind of leads into the state of collecting as far as retro collecting goes today. That aspect of collecting, those stories that I've told you about, that's dead. And I have not encountered anything like that in at least 2 or 3 years. That aspect of collecting is gone. Like people are aware of what they have now, and it's not as easy to find those good deals. Garage selling, I've all but given up on garage selling. I went out last fall and last spring, came up completely empty. Like if I did find any games, they were crap, games that nobody wants. So I just kind of, besides the fact that my collection is at a point now where I'm happy with it, there's not really a whole lot that I want to add to it. So maybe that part of it is keeping me from being as active as I used to be. But I've come up empty-handed so much now that it kind of has sucked the fun out of it. You know what I mean? Like I'm not getting that thrill or that excitement anymore, know, and that's kind of killing it for me. And I've kind of, I still go to thrift stores and I'll still look, but dude, the last time I found anything good at a thrift store has been at least 2 years ago. But it's, the excitement is not there anymore. So I don't do it so much anymore. If I do go looking for a game, it's going to be at a game specific shop or a convention like Retropalooza or something like that. My normal hunting routine is all but dead. But yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, actually. I went out, tried to look for Jade Cocoon. I was in another part of the city that I'm not normally in. And I know there's a couple game stores there and they didn't have it. And I was looking through, was like, well, what else could I buy? Is there something here? I had $50 burning a hole in my pocket. Damn it. Let me find something to buy. and I couldn't find anything. And it was just like, I have that, I don't want that. You know, as like I think I'm done. I think I'm done buying old games as far as that goes. I still have some games on my list, but they're not urgent games. The big ones I wanted, I've got, and I'm good.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's honestly exactly how I feel. Like, I skipped Mo Game Con this year because I went alone last time, which was fine, and it was cool to go and get these games that I didn't have and stuff. But I think what it's become for me is like being able to hang out with like-minded people that I know.
Yeah.
So like, I honestly, if I didn't know you, I don't know that I would have gone back to Retropalooza, or if I knew you weren't going, I don't know that I would have gone. I had just fun hanging out with you and just talking about, you know, collecting and gaming and all this stuff, and just having a few beers and playing arcades and whatnot. And it was a blast. Well, we have 5 of us playing X-Men Arcade, and we beat it.
Oh,
which
yeah, that was awesome.
That was a blast. I mean, it was
Yeah.
cramped as hell, but it was a blast. like just being around those people, I think that's where the excitement comes in for me now. Because yeah, you're right. These lots are going to be few and far between, not to mention people who are selling these games, including places like thrift stores, even garage sales. They're going to be a lot more conscious of what these games are worth, because, you know, with the internet, with YouTube, eBay, obviously they can see it, and they know that these things are desirable in some form. I think it is dying, and it is going down. But I think in some cases, like, there's some games out there that are just always going to be rare and always going to be super expensive. Like, I don't think we're going to be sitting here like, you know, 20 years from now, like, oh, thank God Stadium Events is finally $20. You know, it's just not going to happen. So, but it, like, being able to, you have to kind of like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm at the point where I kind of have to find out why it's still exciting to me, and that comes down to the people in my case, which is funny because I'm a huge introvert. When I'm outside of, you know, a camera and a microphone, I can, you know, talk my ass off right here. But like, when I'm out there, I'm quiet and I kind of shut down. When I went to Mo Game Con, man, I was just kind of just doing my own thing, walking around. I was scared to haggle with people. I was able to do it, but like, I didn't know anybody. It was just me, and I was, you know, 4 hours away from where I live. The highlight of that was getting to talk with Radical Reggie about Star Ocean. And that was just because I got up the nerve to go up to him and just be like, hey man, I really appreciate your work, and just really cool to meet another Star Ocean fan. And we just, for the next like 15 minutes, just started talking about it. Nicest guy in the freaking world. And it was great. And that was one of the highlights of that trip. Even though, I walked away with some great games, got a sweet Nintendo 64 that was customized with some Zelda artwork. But that interaction was the highlight of the trip for me, because it was just, that was the memory that I brought back, the big takeaway. So that's kind of the interactions is kind of where collecting has gone for me, because I have all these games now, and now I can talk about them, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it does completely. I have to agree with you there. I mean, to be honest, I don't think I had bought any retro games this year at all. None of that I can think of. But Retropalooza comes around, I make a list, and I'm like, these are the games that I'm going to go try to find. Like, it brings that excitement back for me. But I don't. I end up.
You still don't get any deals a lot right off the bat. You waited quite a bit before you bought your first game.
Yeah. Because, well, I'm still trying to bargain shop a little bit, you know, trying to find who has the game that I want for the cheapest price. Resident Evil was the game I was looking for on the DS.
Yep.
And I saw it and on several different booths there. And the cheapest version that I found also happened to be the cleanest version. So I was able to pick that up. I was pretty excited about that. But but you're right. Like, that thrill, that excitement of game hunting really came back to me when I went to this convention. Yes, a big part of it to me, and it's really not a big deal, or you're not getting a huge bargain, because by the time if we probably spent $1,000 on this trip, you know, this is gas to get down there,
travel, and absolutely.
Yeah, the hotel room, entry fee to get into the place.
Yep.
But that didn't matter to me. Like,
No.
I'm not going there just to find games. I'm going there for the experience. I'm going there to meet up with you, to go hang out, have a good time. Like, this is more than just finding games to me. This is an experience that I can remember. And I completely 100% agree with you that I go to these things with the social aspect in mind. That's kind of more the thrilling part for me. And I had a great time there. Everything we did was fun.
Yeah, and I mean, I still came away with some amazing stories out of it. I actually,
Exactly.
Before recording tonight, I went to a bar with some of my friends, and one of them happened to be the guy that I bought Gemfire for. And I had told you that I've been looking for that for him for a while and couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And I was able to tell him, like, it's ridiculous how I found it, because we made like 3 laps, all 3 of us trying to, and we, kept our eyes open for it and didn't see anything. Finally, we're just standing there talking about it, and this guy says, "What are you guys looking for?" And I said, Gemfire on the Genesis. And he just points to a glass case 3 feet away from me. Like, holy crap.
How did we miss that?
Yeah,
I have it was right there.
How did you miss that? You're the guy with the eyes. Come on.
I know how I missed it. First of all, it's a game that I never heard of, so I didn't know what I was looking for. Usually when I go, the eagle eye only comes from games that I can visualize if I know what I'm looking for. So that wasn't one. What did he say about that? Was he excited?
Well, that's the thing, is I don't know that he knew much about it either, because I was ready to shell out like $30-$40 for it. Loose, no instruction manual, no case, just the loose Sega cart. And I had told my buddy, we discussed pricing and everything. He said the most he was willing to pay was $30 to $40, and I would just shell it out and whatnot. So I was getting ready to like expect to get, because it was in a glass case. I was expecting him to ask like 50 and then have to try and be like, well, can I give you 35, 40?
Yeah.
And I was like, so how much are you looking for? And he goes, I don't know, 15. And I was like, oh. Yeah. In retrospect, I'm like, damn it. I was too starstruck and too dumbfounded to even try to talk him down. I should have offered him like 10. But like, still, like, it just blew me away. And I was like, done. Yeah, absolutely. Here's the money. And I gave it to my buddy, because he was like, hey, you got change for 20. Because I told him I paid 15 for it. I was like, Merry Christmas, man. It's all yours. $15. Been looking for it forever. I got a great memory out of it. I'm happy to, be able to, because he's not a collector. He's not a hunter or anything like that. He literally just wanted it because he remembers that game from his childhood and he wanted to play it again. And that to me means so much more than any.
Yeah.
But come on, like, seriously, I was more than happy to just be like, have fun, bro. Like, tell me how it is, because I'm curious about this game now, because you talked it up so much.
Well, and you want to share your hobby and your experience with other people.
Absolutely.
Like, even if they're not into it to the extent that you are, if you can share it in any way whatsoever, it's a feel good moment. It's a bonding moment. It's cool.
Yeah.
I would have done the same for sure. Yeah, but the other aspect of going to something like Retropalooza is there's still some hunting to do there.
Sure.
I had my list and I couldn't find like Jade Cocoon 2. I couldn't find a good chunk of games on my list there. And this is a huge auditorium filled with vendors, filled with games, and I still couldn't find them. Now, luckily, I did find a few of the games that I wanted. But I feel like I get a little bit annoying. Amy was there with us, and I always feel like I'm taking too much time, because I look everywhere. I go through the bins. I go through everything to try to find what I'm looking for. And, I want that excitement. One game I can think of specifically is Operation Darkness on the Xbox 360. That game is one that I had heard about in the past, but never really got interested in it until recently. I saw a video on it, and I was really intrigued by how odd the gameplay was, or the characters and the story was. It's like, oh, I want to get this game. I'm going to pick it up at Retropalooza, and I couldn't find it anywhere. It wasn't until the second day of the show. I was looking through a booth that I probably already looked through 4 times already, because I go through these booths several times looking just in case I missed something. And I found it. It was right there, plain sight. Don't know how I missed it the first couple times that I looked.
You kind of have to go through them multiple times, especially in an environment like that. Because I remember you actually getting pissed off at a couple of guys who literally kept like standing right in front of you for like 4 or 5 booths straight.
Yeah.
Like you sometimes just have to be like, all right, you know what, I got to move on in front of these people and go on to the next thing, because everybody's kind of moving like in a a zigzag line throughout the booths and stuff. But at the same time, you're not going to be looking at the same pace as somebody else. You might be holding up for somebody else behind you. You're gonna have people in front of you that are holding you up. You almost have to, in order to even have a chance at getting some of the stuff, you've got to just be like, all right, I'm going to forget this section, remember it, and come back to it. I walked around the place, God, 6-7 times. And I still guarantee you there's places that I didn't look or didn't see. But I am glad that you, just to piggyback on what you said about you being very, very like super meticulous and wanting to get in there and stuff. I'm very glad about that, because we always first thing we do is we say like, all right, so you're looking for this and this. All right, I'll keep my eyes open. And then I tell you what I'm looking for. And this way I know I've got your eyes looking for my stuff too. I love you to death, man. But I guarantee you, like, I'm going to have way less of a chance of finding what you're looking for than you are. So, I'm there to help you out. And if I see it, I'll let you know. But man, you got the eyes. I just got that cheerleader for you, go get them.
Yeah.
But I think it's impressive to watch you work, to say the least. I was not in the least like,
I feel like I'm boring people, like
oh God,
I'm taking too much time. At
least not me.
Okay, well, good. That's good to hear that, because with you and with Amy, like, I'm gonna go back over to this booth. She does. I have to give her a list of games to look for, and then if I can include her in that way, she'll have a good time. Otherwise, I could see it being really boring. It'd be like me going clothes shopping with her or something. It would be super boring. But I get it, and yeah, she was a good sport about it and helped me out. But yeah, I mean, like, I have to go through these booths a couple times, because like you were saying, you brought up a good point with those slow guys. First of all, okay,
I had never seen you mad before that, and that was just like damn, these guys, like,
they wouldn't.
And I don't blame you, because they literally, like, it was like they were following you in front. Like, it was like, what the hell, guys? Really?
Yeah. So there was a couple reasons why it was annoying. They were slow, and they were always together, and both of them were big guys. Okay, like, take up. When you go into a booth, there's not a lot of space to work with. So when you got two big guys standing side by side everywhere you go, and you're trying to look at the games that they're looking at and trying to look around them, and they're just taking their sweet time, it sucks. It was getting annoying, and so I kept looking, and then so I was like, all right, screw it, I'm gonna go to the next booth and come back. And then I'd move on, and then they'd be there again. Like, they were moving at the same pace. So then I would go backwards and try to like go back to the booth that I didn't get to look at very, very heavily, and then start again, and then I'd run into him again. Dude, it was so like comical and obnoxious. But yeah, that was another reason why you have to go through the booths multiple times, because when I was looking through them and everything, like, I know I was missing stuff, and I wasn't able to thumb through the boxes and things and find what I was looking for. But it was fine. Like, I was able to find what I needed or wanted.
For the most part.
Yeah. For the most part. Actually, I could talk about, you want to talk about what we picked up there? If you can remember.
I mean, I don't have it here with me, but if I can remember, sure. I got a whole video up on it on the channel.
Oh, do you? Okay. All right. Well, I'll just kind of quickly name what I got, and I'm pretty excited about it. I got that Resident Evil for DS, Operation Darkness on the 360. But for me, the biggest find, the one that I'm most excited about, is I found a Cloud Strife action figure.
I remember that. Yeah, that was really cool.
It was awesome. Like, he's got his big Buster sword. It's, I don't know, about, I'm looking at it, maybe 7 inches, 8 inches tall.
And you did like 2 laps around the place contemplating it too. Like, I don't know, man.
Expensive.
If I find something else, I don't know. If I find something else, I'll get that. But I keep coming back to this. And then in the end, I think it was Amy who was just like, oh, just get the damn thing.
It's always the case. That is always the case, dude. I go through my head so many times and just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. What decision am I going to make?
She knows
And
you.
then she always has to be, she has to be that decision maker for me. And I'm so glad she did, because that's honestly one of my most prized possessions now.
Yeah.
I love it. But yeah, and even then, like I talked to the girl that sold it to me, and we were pretty enthusiastic about it. I was showing her my cloud tattoo that I got up on my arm. Let's see, there it is.
Hell yeah.
So we were kind of bonding over it, and it almost felt like I need to buy this from this girl just because, we had a moment where we talked about something that we're into, and
Exactly, yeah.
So she was asking 60 for it. I offered 50, and without hesitation, she's like, yeah, sure. That sounds awesome. I was like, I have a perfect spot for it. It's going to look great. And she was just more than happy to sell it to me for that.
And those are the best kinds of booths, like how we talked about earlier. Like, so one of the things that I got was Final Fantasy 3. I have it's my favorite game of all time on Super Nintendo, Final Fantasy 6. And I finally got a box for it. I've always had the manual and in the cart, but I have never had the box for it. So I got a really, really nice box for, I think 70 is what I paid for it, and it had the game inside. So I got an extra copy of the game, which I was expecting to sell for, 35, 45 is what it's going for. So I got home and I put that video up about, what I had gotten there and everything. And I was super excited. And I get a text from my buddy Cameron, who had, if I remember correctly, he had sold a bunch of his old, he loves, like, big fan of Super Nintendo RPGs, just massive, loves those games to death, much like I do. And he had sold off his collection a while ago. I believe it was to take his family on vacation. So it's like, that's a pretty admirable thing to do,
yeah,
keeping it as like an investment. But I know he loves that stuff. So he had asked me, he's like, look, I'm looking to rebuild my Super Nintendo collection again. Have you sold the extra copy of Final Fantasy 3 yet? And I was like, no, I still got it. Absolutely. And he goes, would you be willing to sell it for me? And, what are you looking for? And I told him, I was like, for you, man, bro price, $20, it's yours. So I'm going to give him to him for $20 because I know it's going to go to a good home. I know he's going to appreciate it. And I think that translates to these conventions. When you get into a booth, like you were saying, you had that connection with that girl behind the counter who was talking to you about that stuff. When they see, and that's not everybody, because there are some people who are like, prices are set, no haggling, and they just like, it's like, you just roll your eyes like, cool, thanks, man. But I really like those interactions where they will cut you a deal simply because they know you genuinely love this thing. And they do too. And they share that with you. They might be just trying to make some extra money, or they're trying to like make some room for more stuff that they want to get. There's plenty of reasons as to why they sell stuff there. But when they know something is going to a good home and that it's going to be appreciated by somebody else who is a fan of that, it just makes it that much better. And that goes for both sides. You really see the appreciation and the love, because if you both love the same thing, that's the feeling that we're talking about, that you get at these conventions and just being around people that are like-minded when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And I try, like, not only with conventions and stuff, but like anything. There's a game store in the city that I like to go there only when the owner is there. Because I can talk to the owner, and we have a lot in common with sharing our passion for the hobby.
Right.
And the dude's really cool, and he'll usually cut me deals on things and work with me on stuff. And but if he's not there, then I don't get that. So because he has younger kids that work for him that are just kind of there to work. They don't really share the same kind of passion for the hobby.
Sure.
And that's frustrating. But to talk about somebody who's set in their cost, I don't know if you remember. You have to remember the very last game that I was trying to buy at the convention before we left.
Yes, that was the one that I pointed out to you.
Yeah. Zelda,
Link's Awakening.
Link's Awakening, yes, on the Switch. It wasn't a retro game, and I saw it at another booth earlier that day for $45. I was like, yeah, that's a good price. I'll pay $45 for that. So I go and try to buy it, and it's gone. So I was like, okay, no big deal. I'll just go to Best Buy and buy it with my Gamer.
I think that's what made you pick up the Cloud, actually. was not getting that, wasn't it?
I think I bought the cloud before that.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay.
I think it was down. I was down to like $47 left in my pocket for
Gotcha.
spending money at the show, and I decided, well, I can't find anything else that I want. I know I want that game, so I'll just go get that game.
Yeah.
Well, and I couldn't find it, and so I was like, well, maybe somebody else has it. I know I'd seen it a couple times, and you found it at this one booth, and I went over there to try to buy it. The guy had marked for 50. I was $3 short for buying it for 50. So I said, hey, would you do 45 for it? And he's like, well, no, I don't know. Let me talk to so-and-so. So the other guy that was there running the booth with him, he's like, well, 45, I'll flip a coin. I was like, flip a coin? What do you mean? I'll flip a coin. If it's, if it's whatever you call, then you get it at your price. But if it's whatever I call, then you get it at 50. And actually, you know what? I'm wrong. It wasn't 45. It was 40. I was trying to get for it.
40. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And he didn't want to come down off of it.
The guy watches too much Pawn Stars.
Yeah. And I was like, well, here, I can't do that. Like, I don't have that much money or something. I don't remember what I told him, but I was like, no, I don't. I want to buy it at this price. If you're not willing to sell it to me at this price, then I just don't want it.
Yeah.
And that became like a problem to him. I think he got offended or something by me saying that. I don't know what the deal was. It was kind of a weird situation. He's like, no, I'm not doing that. It's like, cool. All right. I was like, well, would you do 45 then? And by that time, I think he was already pissed off and just didn't want to haggle at all. He goes, no, he wasn't going to do 45. I was like, okay, well, I can just go to Best Buy. And I was trying to reason with him why 45 was a good deal for me. I was like, I can go to Best Buy and buy this game brand new for $48.
Yeah, because it wasn't in plastic wrap or anything, was it? I don't think so.
No, it was a used game. Yeah. So I didn't think it was that big a deal. And the guy was like, well, no, after tax, you won't be paying $48. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But, for a new game, I think I'll pay the tax.
Right.
It's fine. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I do remember that dude pissed me off. He really pissed me off.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was not, he's not willing to work with me.
How dare you not want to flip that coin, sir? Like, really? Come on.
He was offended that I didn't want to play his stupid game.
You gave him a fair offer. The guy was just a douche.
Yeah.
It sounded like the first guy was willing to do it, but it wasn't his booth, unfortunately.
Like, if that other guy was out walking around, I think I would have got the game for the deal. But you know what? I left. I went to Best Buy when I got back home, and I picked up the game anyway. So I'm fine. And I paid what I wanted to pay. Well, I didn't pay what I wanted to pay at the convention, but I did pay what I felt was appropriate for a new game.
Yeah. Did you play it yet?
Yes, I'm probably let's see, I'm on the second or third dungeon, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's charming, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. But I don't know where I was going to go with that. I had a thought, but I lost it after.
We just talking about the asshole at Retropalooza. That's all.
And there's not very many of those. Like, that was the first time I've had that experience.
And it's like, I should probably clarify, just because somebody doesn't come down on a price, that also doesn't automatically make them a bad person or a jerk or something like that.
No.
I remember the first year we went, there was a booth that was selling games that were in pristine condition. I don't remember the name of it, but they were in immaculate condition. They had like just beautifully taken care of. They cleaned them all up, looked wonderful. And they were selling, they would not come down on anything. But
I know what booth you're talking about.
Yeah.
They didn't just clean them up. They replaced cases and stuff on those
right.
games.
The guy was super nice, super friendly, and everything. He was just like, yeah, sorry, man, the prices are set, And you know what? As long as they're not like charging like $40 over eBay prices or something like that, then I'm like,
right.
I get it. It's fine. And I bought a few games off of that. I don't remember what I got from him, but I remember one of them. That,
Eternal Eyes.
Eternal Eyes. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That didn't really bother me, but like, don't be a dick is kind of just what it comes down to.
Yeah. And he had a copy of Clock Tower that I really wanted. but he was asking like $20 over eBay. I was like, man, I can't do that. And I
Mm.
tried to ask him to go down on it, and he wouldn't go down. And it's fine. It's his prerogative. I am not gonna be upset if somebody doesn't want to come off their price.
Yeah.
The problem I had with that guy is I didn't want to play his game, and he got upset with me because of that.
And your offer was more than fair. $5 off for a used game. Like, come on, really,
yeah,
dude?
yeah. It's it's fine. Like after the fact, I wasn't sour about not getting the game. I was sour with how
No, just the
offended
attitude.
and-
Yeah,
the attitude he gave me.
I don't blame you.
But that doesn't happen. I mean, it literally that hardly ever happens. So
No, for the most,
as long as
for the
you're
most
cool
part, it's a
with
good
people.
experience.
Actually, I got another good story. We used to have a convention down here in Oklahoma City called Super BitCon, and one year I went. There was a booth that I went to, and a guy beside me, or kid, he looked young. I don't know. He picked up a game, and he walked up to the guy and he's like, "I'm going to give you this much money for this game." And the guy was like, "No, you're going to give me how much money is listed on the." It was clearly marked on the thing. It wasn't like he was trying to ask; he was demanding that he was going to take it for this price. And he's like, "Oh, well, I mean, would you take this much?" He's like, "No, I'm not going to take that much." So the guy just walks away, and I go up to the same guy, and I had two games. He had two games that I wanted. I was like, "Hey, would you take?" I asked him. I set up my own price for a bundle. I was like, "Would you take this much for these two games?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem." It's like, see, it's all how you approach somebody. If you go
absolutely.
in there with an attitude or demanding something, you're not going to get what you want. You have to be civil with people, And apparently, this guy missed the how to haggle class or something. I don't know. It was funny.
Yeah, absolutely. There was that booth with where I got Tomb Raider 2 and I want to say Crazy Taxi. And guy wanted I think he wanted 25 for Crazy Taxi, and then it may have been Sonic, one of the whichever one goes for around 25. And then he wanted 10 for Tomb Raider 2, and I flat out just asked him like, would you be willing to do 25 for both? And he said, yeah. He did.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to ask. If they say no, it's fine. You that's what they're there for, is they want to clear their inventory. They want to move.
Right.
Exactly. So you just have to make sure that you are fair on your side as well, and also not demand.
Yeah, you're right. Don't go in there and expect to ask 50% off of a game or something and get it.
Right.
It's not how it works.
I'm looking at Panzer Dragoon Saga here. I got a 20 in my pocket. Is that good? Like,
yeah,
I'm just going to insult him at that point.
My rule of thumb is generally about 20%. I'll ask for about 20% off on a game, and I think that's fair. And most of the time, the seller thinks it's fair as well. I rarely have somebody turn me down.
Bundling helps too.
Bundling definitely helps. Yes, I agree.
That's typically what I try to do is like, even if I will pay full price of what they're asking for something, like I did in the case in that Dreamcast game, if I can get another game lumped in with it, that's cheaper and smaller in there, because then I feel like I'm at least getting a decent deal out of it. And it's something that they are trying to get rid of anyways because they've got it marked low. It's not a problem. So bundling is definitely probably my number one go-to tactic. If I find one game that I want at a booth, first thing I'm going to do is look for something else that I want there so I can throw them together.
You're right. That is a good tactic, and it does work. One other thing though to take in consideration is I'm kind of a encyclopedia of game price knowledge.
I'm well aware.
I generally know the prices of games. So if I feel like a lot of people probably do too, or maybe a lot of people are at least going to look it up on their phone to see if they're overpaying for something. If you go and find a game that is lower than the going rate, it's not worth haggling over. You're already getting a good deal on it. Like perfect example is that Operation Darkness game that I picked up. That's a $30 game, and I know it was a $30 game. The guy had $17 on it. I'm not going to haggle with them on something that I'm already getting below market value. And yeah, so I'm happy with that. Like I was already willing to pay 30, and if I'm getting paying 17 for it, then I'm good with that. I'm cool.
That's why I was so blown away about Gemfire. I was expecting to pay 30 to 40.
Yeah.
The guy said 15. I was like, done. So,
to change subjects slightly, back to the collecting. I have not really given up on collecting, but I've kind of shifted gears on what I collect. So I've, instead of going to thrift stores and pawn shops and things and trying to find those retro games for good deals, I have been looking for good deals on Switch games. Switch has been my go-to console lately. So this weekend specifically, like this is a great time of year to get good deals on games because of Christmas. And I've been finding a lot of good deals on games that I've been waiting on picking up. And I've been having a good time getting these games at cheaper rates. I hardly ever pay full price for a game. And like all those games that I listed off at the beginning of the show, all of those I got for good deals, really good deals. So
and I think
that's kind of where I shifted gears.
We're planning on doing a full episode on collecting for the Switch, aren't we? Sometime in the
yeah, because I do have a lot to say about it, but I do think it's cool that, or not cool, but it's kind of weird how my actions have changed. I guess I don't know, like how I've switched gears. Like I'm at a comfortable spot in my retro collection now that I'm pursuing a more modern collection, but I'm not going for everything. I'm just looking specifically at one console, and I'm gearing or steering towards a specific genre as well. I'm still staying within that RPG stuff, but
you know what's weird?
I still find enjoyment in it.
I've got so many more PS4 games than I do Switch games. Like probably 3 times as many, I'd say. Maybe not 3 times, probably about twice as many. But when I look at my PS4 collection, I don't get that same sense of satisfaction as I'm happy with the games that I have, but those are all games that I legitimately want to play and wanted to get into at some point. Whereas the Switch, maybe it's just because the way they look on the shelf. Like there are plenty of Switch games I haven't played, but I just feel like pride when I look at my Switch collection for some reason. And I have no idea why that is, but I love the way they look. I love the cases. So I don't know, just side thing, but I just thought that was weird.
Here's why I think that is, and that's the same way with me. For me, the Switch has quickly become like my favorite console, just because it fits my play style better. But whenever I think about games for the PS4 and the Xbox One, I go back and I think about the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Like, I was never big into collecting for those systems either, and they just seem so abundant, and there's so many digital versions of those games that come out constantly, that it kind of I think it's digital. The digital age is what's making those games not as desirable, or not as collectible. They're still desirable. People want to play them. Obviously, I still want to play mine, but I'm not super into collecting them. Whereas on the Switch, a lot of those games are still available digitally, but maybe it's the cartridge. I don't know. Maybe it's
the aesthetics.
For me, like
Nintendo's always been great at aesthetics.
The aesthetics, but I also think for me, like a lot of those games don't have DLC and don't require updates. I mean, a lot of them do have updates, but when you buy those games on discs on PS4, you almost always have a day one update that you have to apply before you can play the game, which kind of like later on down the road might render those games kind of useless. So the collectability in them, at least for me, goes away with that. On the Switch, yes, there are day one updates on some games, but it's not that often. On top of that, you can still play the game perfectly fine without those updates in most cases. Now, there are a few exceptions. There are some games that require you to download a portion of the game. LA Noir is one game that comes to mind specifically.
Mega Man Legacy Collection.
Yep, that one too. And that kind of sucks, but those aren't the ones that I'm particularly after, even though I have the Legacy Collection. But also, like, my memory card can't store all those games digitally, so I'd rather have the cartridges anyway. But they look good. I love those little cases. Like, one of my favorite collections that I have is my DS and my 3DS collection, and it kind of is an extension of that to me.
Sure. Cool, man.
So, I don't know. I definitely think that the digital age, is what's making modern consoles less collectable.
Even older ones for me, honestly, I have noticed that ever since I hacked my SNES, it hasn't been as imperative for me to get the cartridges for the old ones, because
you're so right.
I want them so I can play the games. But if I've got them on there, if I know it's going to be like a $60-$70 game, I'm just like, I can already play it. I'm not too worried about it. If I find a great deal on it and I can get that $60-$70 game for $20, I'm going to take it. Absolutely. I'm going to have it, so I have it on the shelf. But if all I'm doing is looking to play it, which in a lot of cases that's the case, because I yes, I collect these games, but I do plan on trying most, if not all of them, at some point.
Right.
So that's the whole thing behind it. And I'm, as much as I love physical media, there's clearly something to be said about convenience when it comes to digital stuff. It's it is what it is.
And with those classic consoles, you're getting a very close representation of that experience.
Absolutely.
You're still playing with the same controller. You're playing, it's easier because you can just select a game on digital format. You can plug it into any TV. You're not limited to like an old CRT or something.
Yep.
You can hack them and put however many games you want to put on them. Like that, since the Super Nintendo and NES, and even the PlayStation and the Genesis classics, since getting those, my desire for collecting for those systems has pretty much gone away. I'm not in a hurry to add to those collections at all. And I think that,
because you have access.
I think you're right. Yeah, I already have access to them, and I'm not collecting just to look at them. Yes, that is a part of it, but I do want to play these games and experience them. And if I can do that in a way that's easier and cheaper, I'm okay with that.
100% agreed. We're looking at almost an hour and a half now. Is there anything else that you would like to touch on with regards to collecting? I think we hit quite a few aspects.
We did. Yeah, that was a fun discussion. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure. This is like, for anybody curious about like what it's like to go to Retropalooza with Adrian and I, this is, imagine 2 days straight of this, and that's pretty much what it is. You throw in a few beers and like an arcade and like a few laps around a big gymnasium, and that's literally like, it's just games. We just talk games. That's that's why we love it.
Don't forget the fun exotic foods that we try to experience.
Yes, of course. Man, I am still like reeling at how good that vegan meal was, and I had no idea, and it was delicious. It was wonderful. So I was super excited.
So good. Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah. And thanks that JJ bought for me. Thank you, JJ. That was very nice of you.
And you guys chauffeured me around so freaking much, both years in a row now. So
not a problem. It goes right along with what you were saying. Like, it's fun to be there and share the experience in the hobby with somebody else who appreciates it. So it's an awesome thing to be able to do that. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to try and do with this show is we have our episodes for ideas planned in advance. And so for episode 2, our next one, we are going to be talking about a topic that Adrian brought to my attention that I thought was super, super interesting. And that is it worth it to still play older games? You saw that on like some post or something on Twitter?
Yeah, it was a Twitter post. I don't remember specifically what the post said, but it was basically somebody was arguing the fact that why would you play old games? You know, they're old and obsolete, and these new games improving them on almost every level. And I have a lot of thoughts about
Why
that.
would you watch
And
old movies? You know, we can get into that. We can get into
Yeah.
that.
that'll be a good discussion. Yeah.
Cool. And also we don't have like an email set up or anything like that to really get in contact with us at this point. But if you're listening to the audio portion, Adrian, what's your Twitter that they can find you at?
Birdazoid. It's at Birdazoid. BIRDAZOID.
All right, and I am at JJ Santanello, JJ SANTANIELLO. I have that in all my video links on my YouTube channel, Game Room Revival, where I will have this video as well. So if you're seeing it there, contact us on Twitter or just leave it in the comments. You know, if you have any ideas for episodes or topics you want us to talk about, by all means, absolutely let us know. Because we're here to just talk about games, and we want to get people interested and like having discussions and stuff. One of my favorite parts about whenever I release a new video is seeing what comments come, and I try to respond to every single person that comments, because I
Even me.
am interested. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But I genuinely like that kind of stuff. So please interact with us. Please, by all means, reach out. Either one of us. I know I speak for both of us when I say we just want to talk games, and
Exactly.
and we're more than happy to do that with anybody. So, you got any final thoughts on collecting?
I would say that if you want to get into the hobby now, good luck. I don't think it's a good idea. There's other ways to get into
a handful of doubles that you can maybe root through. I mean, it's like
there you go.
Super Mario Brothers 3 and Tetris and stuff. So it's not going to be gold, but it's a starting point. So, all right. I mean, I think that's all I got as well. You want to close us out?
Yeah. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
Adios.